Hey, thanks for clicking on the video. Today, from the title, you probably guessed, we are talking about how Bungie is buffing Song of Flame, among other things. But we'll get to that in a second. We're getting ahead of ourselves. Song of Flame is an already great super, and we are going to see its damage increased with the release of Act 2 this Tuesday. Now, how is this happening? Well, it's happening with the help of artifact mods. Similar in how the community's been getting up in arms and kind of memeing about how Still Hunt is getting quote-unquote buffed with the launch of Act 2, Song of Flame and those other sources of ignitions I mentioned a second ago are getting quote-unquote buffed as well. And today in this video, we'll be looking at the numbers to see how much those ignitions mean in the grand scheme of things. First, taking a look at Song of Flame and then looking at our other sources, which before I really get any farther than that, what is all of this coming from? Which artifact mod? And if you already read the TWID, you saw the developer showcase, you know I'm talking about Solar Fulmination. This is in the fourth column, so pretty deep into our artifact, and since we aren't getting any new unlocks, it's really a choice between this or something like Void Hegemony and Blade Stamina, but for reasons we'll get into, I think a lot of us are gonna run Solar Fulmination. So reading that, it says, your ignitions do increased damage in an increased radius. Pretty straightforward, but is it actually? Because this isn't the first time we've had Solar Fulmination. Bungie has actually gotten pretty adept at reusing old artifact mods, and most people haven't noticed it. The last time we had Solar Fulmination was 2 years ago during Witch Queen's Season of the Haunted. Now, what did this actually do? Well, similar to how our current artifact mod that we have unlocked, Threaded Blast, works, according to a very old Destiny data compendium entry, ignitions deal a bonus damage instance, dealing 24% more damage and applying Scorch in a radius. So essentially you get two numbers. You get the base ignition, and then Solar Fulmination adds another tick on top of that, which is 24% of that base number. Now, during the debut season of this artifact mod, there were lots of Reddit posts and tweets about it not working properly because it would actually apply self-damage and not increase damage. Very, very weird perk. I don't even remember dying to my own ignitions, but Season of the Haunted was definitely a buggy one. Granted, I assume since Bungie's bringing it back, they've probably ironed out some of the quirks, and I should say that although this is how it worked in the past, you got an extra damage instance, it dealt 24% more total damage. There's a very good chance that's not how this works now. It could be a larger increase, it could not be a second instance, it could all just be one. I couldn't tell you until this Tuesday. But at the very least, I don't think they're gonna make it worse than when it was 2 years ago. So moving forward, we're gonna go off the pretext that ignitions are getting a 24% damage buff. Now, with Solar Fulmination kinda out of the way, let's actually tackle the namesake of this video, the damage buff to Song of Flame, because that's what intrigued me the most. For my warlocks out there who are stunning Herald with Tractor or just trying to do damage with the super that isn't Needlestorm, we're using Song of Flame. I love the super. It gives you 90% damage resist and it does great damage. So when I saw Solar Fulmination and the possibility of having an already pretty damn good super get even better, I wanted to look at the numbers, which takes us to this. Here at Greg, I'm using Star Eaters because that's really the only time you're gonna be using the super for damage, and I figured that was an okay base. Again, Star Eaters, our total damage is 1,135,830. If we dissect that and look at what damage comes from what, across the whole super, we got 6 ignitions. This came out to 350,154 of that total damage number, which comes out to 30% of that. So when you cast your super and you're doing it against one target, 30% of your damage comes from ignitions, which is what's going to get buffed by Solar Fulmination. Now, if we do the math and take that 30% of our damage and increase that by 24% and then add that back to the rest of the ability damage, we get 1,219,867 damage from just one Song of Flame super, Now comparing that to just our base Star Eaters, it's a 7% increase. Yeah, that isn't a whole lot, especially for being a 24% increase. Ignitions just don't make up enough of the Song of Flame super damage to really make a super impactful change. Granted, like I said earlier, there's a possibility that they bring back Solar Fulmination in a stronger form, but without, speculating too much, 7% is the minimum that we're gonna look at. So is that gonna be, shifting any best supers in the game, anything like that? Not really. But where I think things will actually change and where we will really feel this artifact mod go to town is when we talk about the other sources. Things like Incinerator Snap, Consecration, even certain exotics and weapon perks. A 24% increase in damage to those abilities and sources is pretty hefty. If we look at Incinerator Snap and Consecration, the two abilities that I named, that's on top of Shield Crush, which we have active right now, that increases our melee damage. And since those abilities have ignitions integral to them, you're getting double the increase. And I know there is a lot of Consecration spam going around, much to the dismay of Titans, as it's fairly boring to have that as your only viable build, but it's getting stronger. Granted, that's probably not the outcome everybody wants. I think variety is the goal, not just going even more into the Consecration spam. But outside of our abilities, we also have the weapons that I mentioned. Specifically, we've got exotics. The first one that comes to mind is Dragon's Breath. This rocket is actually very good. I think there's been quite the downturn in popularity for this, mostly because Still Hunt is in the game and we're not really using exotic heavies right now. But when exotic heavies are in fashion, Dragon's Breath is very respectable. And as you probably know, Dragon's Breath is all about ignitions. What's more though, and what I'm not talking about in this video, is that you could pair Dragon's Breath with a legendary solar sniper like the Ikelos sniper rifle. And since we've got those absolutely cracked sniper mods, you could pair those together and see some crazy stuff. At least you probably are gonna see some crazy stuff. I could honestly make a whole separate video just talking about that one combo I just listed, and I very well may when that actually launches, assuming it's good and is working how I think it is in my mind. But this video isn't about solar snipers. I'm sure you've heard enough about that. The other ignition sources worth mentioning are, the less popular exotics. You've got Polaris Lance, which I think still has a pretty diehard fan base, at least from last season. That causes ignitions. You even have Ergo Sum with the same perfect 5th perk. That's going to cause ignitions and benefit from Solar Fulmination. I think Jotun causes ignitions. I actually don't even remember. Ariana's Vow causes ignitions, and that's actually getting a buff in Act 2 at some point as well. But even moving on from exotics, you've got the perk Incandescent, which can and fairly often will cause ignitions. You can use it on weapons like EXR, for example, or you could also use it on the new Solar Rocket Sidearm, which I'm pretty sure a lot of us are going to use. And if you decide to craft it with Incandescent, then you can expect Solar Fulmination to benefit you there. Really, there is a ton of different things that are going to benefit from Solar Fulmination. This is an artifact mod that was introduced way back at the inception of Solar 3.0, and now we're here with Prismatic looking at the return of this finicky mod in a sandbox absolutely dominated by solar abilities and weapons. So while Act 2 has been revealed and most people are focusing on, again, the snipers, there is actually quite a bit more going on behind the scenes. And I actually think that's all I really wanted to talk about today. I'm very excited for Act 2 next week. We've got the new battlegrounds, we've got the new artifact mods, obviously, we've got some probably secret stuff, I don't know. But I'm glad that Act 2 is finally here. Let me know down in the comments below if you're excited for Solar Fulmination's return, or if you don't really care and you just want to see the other artifact mods. Also, let me know if there's any ignition tied sources that I missed. Maybe there's some absolutely meta ignition spawner that I didn't even mention in this video. I would love to learn about something new, so definitely if you got something, let me know in the comments. Again, thank you. If you want to support me and support the channel, a like, a comment, a subscription goes a long way. On the way to 9,000 subs, really can't express my gratitude enough. But if you want to support me and support the channel but you can't think of a comment down below, Solar Fulmination. And with that, as usual, I hope you are having a great day, and I hope to see you around.